I was in an altered state of consciousness where I was, for the first time, half navigating in the spiritual realm and half embodied into this body, which was still holding so much pain and trauma and shadow energies. So for many, many months, I was having this such extreme experience where every few hours I would basically be shifting between being in a state of complete bliss and oneness and unity with the ether, with spirit. And then a few hours later, I would be flung into an experience of suicidal terror, where I would be for several hours. Other days, it was a little bit lighter. But through this journey of such an extreme example of shifting from being completely spiritually disconnected to then being thrown immediately into an open, expanded, fifth dimensional consciousness.
Welcome to Becoming Awesome with Peter D and his lovely guest, Alice Swaddling.
Hey, you beautiful souls. I am so excited that Alice Swaddling is here today. Alice has become a friend over the past few years, and I'm just continually blown away to just watch the amount of grace coming into this beautiful, beautiful soul. I'm so excited to be able to introduce you today. Alice is originally from the UK and is what you would call a walk-in soul. So, Alice, please say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm so pleased to be here with you and share this moment with you. And thank you, Peter and Tracy, for this opportunity to come together and to speak about my story and this collective journey that we're all on here together. So to tell you a bit about my past. So things changed massively for me 3 years ago. So in January 2022, I had something called a soul walk-in experience. And at the time, I had no idea what that was. That's only something that I've been able to piece together since to understand. And essentially what happened is in one night, my soul energy that had been present in this incarnation up until that point actually crossed over and returned to source. And in its place stepped in a higher aspect of my soul from a higher dimension, stepped into this incarnation with new skills, new gifts, new abilities, new insights, and a message from the divine that I understood I was here to share. And I think an important part of this story is understanding the contrast from where I was before, because up until that point in my life, I was not someone who was on the spiritual path at all. I had no awareness of spirituality. I hadn't got any access to that kind of information or those resources or those people. I
Just to
didn't
tease you
have
a
the
little bit, Alice,
vocabulary.
just to tease you a little bit, from what I knew, you were a party girl.
Yeah, exactly. I was very much living a, 3D, what I would describe now as being spiritually asleep, like in the Matrix. I was, getting up and going to work and feeling depressed, feeling anxious, at times suicidal. And I would use different ways to numb those feelings, which would be sometimes drinking alcohol or sometimes using drugs or doing things like that, which would be a release, some relief from the pain of the burden that was this emotional baggage that I didn't know I was carrying and I didn't know what to do with it. It wasn't
Pretty
something
much
that
what
I was
everybody was
consciously.
doing. Pretty much everybody, the way we're raised in our culture. Oh, yeah, just go blow off steam, get drunk, right? That's pretty much where you were.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I didn't have a conscious awareness of that being the state that I was in. So I wasn't empowered to be able to do anything about it. I just thought that, you know, these emotions are something that we're needing to resist and show courage by pushing away from them and putting on the brave face and acting like being functional in the world, being able to smile and get up and go about your day was the sign of success, regardless of internally how much pain or how much suffering you might actually be feeling. And so there was this huge disconnect in my life between the image that I was portraying and the internal landscape, which was just so challenging and so difficult.
And you had a trigger event that helped you make this
Mm,
shift. But before we get into that, I just want to be clear. When you speak about being a soul walking, it's not like you, Alice, left and then some other entity came in. No, it was like you, Alice, incarnate in 3D left and a bigger aspect of Alice. So it was kind of like you expanded your bandwidth. You're still Alice, but you're more Alice than you ever
mm.
were because, you know, I'm not sure I have the words for it, but is this correct? It's not like some other entity came in, but more of you came in.
Yeah, so my understanding is it's still the same soul energy, but actually, like if you think of it as the third dimensional aspect of who I am, that soul did leave. And so it's almost like understanding that there are parts of our energy, parts of our consciousness, which are actually operating and existing fairly separately at different levels. And so it was a new fifth dimensional aspect of my soul who walked in. It wasn't called a walk exchange, a soul exchange.
So a brand new
So
you, but still you.
yeah,
Wild,
exactly.
wild. So what was the triggering event? Because for me, this, you know, makes it a cool story. But if you don't mind sharing, what's the trigger?
Yeah. So it was on actually a night out with friends. It was someone's birthday drinks in London. And we were out in a bar, which was sort of like a little bit like a club kind of environment. And effectively what happened was that I was drugged by someone. I was spiked. And I didn't realize it while I was still there at the bar with my friends. It only started to hit me, and I started to lose like consciousness, like become disorientated as I left this bar on my own to travel back from where I was in London, central London, to where I was living at the time, which was in Cambridge, which was about a 2 hour journey that I was then going to need to undertake alone, having just been drugged. Um, and essentially, what happened was the memories came back to me like in little bits over time over the following weeks. But I just remember this sensation of almost being like, I want to say, sort of lifted out of my body slightly. So I lost the ability to function and control my limbs. And I remember like the sensation of basically going blind, losing my sight. And so it was almost like having lost the controls. Like if I was controlling the body as the robot, it was almost as though suddenly my controls were cut, they weren't working anymore. Um, and somehow in this state of confusion, which then became this almost an experience of being in a black void and being churned round in a washing machine. Somehow I managed to get help from people and speak out loud to people to say, I need help. Can you help me? I need to get home. And then through a chain of strangers who intervened, I understand that I was guided, like holding the hands of people who obviously they couldn't tell how extreme the internal experience was that I was having. From the outside, I think I maybe looked like, oh, I'm a bit spaced out or I'm a bit drunk, but they had no idea about what was actually happening. And I was basically helped to get onto the London Underground. And it was there underground on the tube between Angel Station and King's Cross Station that
Angel and
the
King,
walk-in
those are
experience.
signs. Angel and King.
Yeah, yeah. That was where the walk-in experience actually took place, and sat there on the tube in this state of being completely disconnected and sedated. the people around me had no idea that in that moment I actually went through what was a death process, and a new energy stepped into this incarnation. And yeah, everything changed beyond that point.
Wow.
For
Wow. I just want
my
to tell people, don't try this at home. Okay? Don't try this at home. So when I was at Oneness University, this was a pretty common experience because there were thousands of us in the class each time. And every night there would be one or two people after big processes who would be on the floor for an hour or two, and people would help them get back to the dorm, and it would take days to integrate. But you were surrounded by high conscious people. You were not surrounded by anybody when this happened. I had it happen to me, but not near to the experience that you had. And it still blew me away for a while. So here you had this happen. You had grace come in, your soul came in, beautiful people around you helped you. So now tell me the difference of Alice before and Alice after.
Well, I mean, this was quite the journey because, to be honest with you, for the first several months, like I want to say maybe up to as far as 6 months, I was in an altered state of consciousness where I was, for the first time, half navigating in the spiritual realm and half embodied into this body, which was still holding so much pain and trauma and shadow energies. So, for many, many months, I was having this such extreme experience where every few hours I would basically be shifting between being in a state of complete bliss and oneness and unity with the ether, with spirit. And then a few hours later, I would be flung into an experience of suicidal terror, where I would be for several hours. And this was basically all of the shadow energies that I hadn't realized I was holding in my field that were coming up now because of the raising in my vibration. They were coming up to be seen and up to be processed. And that was, my dark night of the soul, my, what is it, the
Dark several
40
months of the
nights in
soul.
the yeah, exactly, 40 days and night of the jungle, or whatever the phrase is. That yeah, I was basically like learning to navigate like a ship in a storm, the consciousness storm of my own internal being, understanding and connecting with the own truth of everything that I was holding for the first time. And some days I was, practically bedbound, like I couldn't really barely function. Other days it was a little bit lighter. But through this journey of such an extreme example of shifting from being completely spiritually disconnected to then being thrown immediately into an open, expanded fifth dimensional consciousness, um, I was then basically connecting with entities and beings in the spirit realm. I was receiving downloads and messages. I was tapping into alternate timelines, experiencing alternate timelines at the same time. And it was so overwhelming, I was so confused. I was like, what is going on? I have no idea what all this means. I'm so
It
confused.
must be horrible to go through all that alone. Oh my God, it was crazy for
Yeah.
me to take it in smaller steps with teachers and monks and thousands around me. Uh, One of the things I want to reinforce is many of you who are watching this and many of the people I've worked individually are on the opposite end. It's like you'll complain, how come it's not going any faster? Here's why it's not going any faster. Okay. You have to let go of such big pieces of yourself. It's not just that reality changes around you, but your very essence and your core and who you identify with as a being, as an entity changes. And it's big stuff. And so, fortunately, whatever you were doing at some point when you got out there, you came across my work, and I'm sure you heard the crazy words clear, 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 and that might have resonated with you. So tell me about what it was that moved you more into your spiritual journey. I know it's not just something that was that, something that, I had a very small part in, but I know you've been traveling around the world visiting. Tell me what that transition period was like.
Yeah, so it was probably around about 7 to 8 months after the walk-in event that I suddenly started to question and understand things about what I had found and the value of what I had found, because I had learned the contents of my subconscious, and that is learning the contents of the shadow. And it was in many ways a reflection of the collective subconscious that is playing out on a planetary level.
Oh, yeah.
And so I started to tap into initially a process of self forgiveness and compassion for myself, which helped me lift out of this feeling of, oh, if there's all these, traumatic and painful and judgmental, evil ideas floating inside of you, that was something that I had been being told by my ego internally, like, you don't deserve to live, you should kill yourself. That was the narrative of the thoughts that were coming through. And eventually I realized, well, hold on a minute. If I was holding these energies or these thoughts, but I had no conscious awareness that they were there, and I had never consented to them being programmed into my psyche, then I was helpless to do anything about them. And this was when I realized that, the shadow, the darkness that was there was not a sign of me somehow being a flawed or faulty or bad person. I realized these are the patterns that are playing out across the planet, where our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our behaviors, and therefore our outcomes, the future that we are creating, have been being controlled by these fear programs that have been being disseminated into the culture, in the traditions and the media and forms of communication. And I realized, wow, this is such a gift. This awareness, this information, I could see a new awareness of compassion for the pain and the suffering that I could see reflected around me in the collective, that everyone is feeling and struggling and feeling that burden and that pain of emotions and feeling trapped and feeling blocked and feeling sad, feeling disconnection, feeling loneliness. I could see for the first time that this information was going to be something that I could use to empower other people and to help them lift out of the state that I had previously been living in before that night of divine intervention. And I think an important point to note about what happened with the walk in, it's not something that was a tragedy that happened, which I would take back if I could. I very much understand and know from my own healing and my own journey that it was a part of the soul contracts and the plan that my soul made in agreement with source, in agreement with God, that this is how I'm going to come in. This is the experience I'm going to have for the first phase of my life. And then I'm going to have this event, which is going to shift me from one extreme of the spectrum to the other extreme of the spectrum. So I can see and understand and navigate the path that people are taking and where they are on their journey, which then lies almost within the boundaries of my own personal understanding. And that has been a huge gift and a huge honor to now step more fully into, publicly being of service in this way.
That's so beautiful, Alice. Uh, the next thing I want to bring up is where you're doing now, which is what you call emotional mastery, which is from your
Mm.
wisdom and understanding process you develop to help people. Uh, Alice took me through this process just recently. Very significant. I won't get into all the gory details, but one of the after effects, and I haven't even told you this yet, Alice, one of the after effects is my whole sexuality has been patterned for my entire lifetime. And it gets triggered. So I'll see stimuli like on a TV show or something. And then my thought pattern will kick in like it has always kicked in. And then the guilt, oh, these are horrible things. Why would you think this? Why would you believe this? But now, after the process with you, I'm a step removed from that. So the trigger's out there, the thought pattern kicks in, and then I start seeing that this is not my thought pattern, and this is not me who has to feel guilty or bad about this. This is what's been in the collective that I've agreed to hold and express as part of my journey, as part of planetary healing. So all of a sudden, all the pressure is off. It's no longer me doing it, it's me being in resonant frequency with, which then leads to the whole clearing thing, which is what you helped me out with. So it's just beautiful stuff.
Mm.
We'll talk more about the specifics of that in a few moments, but I just want to give you from personal testimony. Oh my God, what you're doing. Yay. Okay. So, uh, Alice, tell us about this emotional mastery healing program that you've been able to put into practice.
Mm. Yeah, so this is something that I have developed, which is designed to help people reprogram their relationship with their emotions. And from my own journey, I understand this to be a really important key in unlocking your growth and your soul's ascension. And so the journey that I've been on to get to this point of developing it has been one that has been very source led. So ever since the walk in, I'm receiving direct guidance from my higher self, from my spirit guides, my spiritual team, from source. So my life is being guided and directed according to that intuition and those downloads, those messages. And a part of that had led me into doing last summer some energy healing trainings, which were about basically transmuting and healing blocked energy from the auric field. So sometimes this can be referred to as things like psychic surgery. And through doing the processes of learning these techniques, which come way back from the Essenes and the Arcturians, going way back, and basically the thread of truth that I could see between those techniques and other teachers of mine, including yourself and Tracy and everything you have also taught me, was that we are basically carrying blocked emotional energy, which is almost acting like having an energy field which is filled with, I want to say the word tumors. And it's almost like having a tumor in the physical body is happening in the energetic field where there are these unexpressed emotions. And so, how we were originally designed to operate on the energetic level by source was that emotions would come through us. It would literally be energy in motion is emotion. And so it was something that was meant to just be felt and pass through like the passing of a river. And essentially what happened was the souls of humanity created judgments about what these emotions meant, that some emotions were bad, some were undesirable, and that they would cause pain, which we wanted to block ourselves from feeling. We wanted to resist that. And so what happened was feelings of fear, feelings of anger, feelings of shame, etc., that emotional energy started becoming blocked inside of our energy field, almost like the judgment was acting like a dam, which was blocking the flow of that river. And behind that dam, pressure builds up. And that is what creates these energetic blockages that take up space in our energy field, and energy that would have otherwise previously been aligned with source love and source power and source intelligence was then taken up instead by the disease, toxic emotional energy, which was like these energetic tumors. And so all of the practices that I could see that I was being taught were ways to tap into these energy fields and release the emotion, which is all of the great work that you and Tracy are doing, and your, beautiful catchphrase, clear, 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 which is, I'm waiting for you to put that on a t-shirt for me.
Yeah. And I just want to add to this is when you were explaining this process to me, it made so much sense because you've encountered this and I've encountered it. It's like, you know, some of us are so removed from our emotional body that they can't even get to an awareness that they are holding a feeling because it's just all a mental imprint going over it, right? And so I'll sit there and hit them with a hammer, a spiritual hammer. Just come on, keep going so you can let this emotion act it out, even if it's not real. Just pretend until you get some release, and then that'll allow space for my energetics to slip in, and then your higher self to slip in, and you'll have there. But you were subtle. You sat there and said, oh, they don't know how. So we have to train them at the very first level on how to even identify and access an emotion. And you took me through the process and was beautiful. And this is not just a beginner's process, because I like to think that I'm pretty far along on this scale. And it really helped me. And that's what you're saying is no matter where you're at, it's going to get a lot of value at. But for those of you watching and have been trouble accessing and identifying emotions, the process that Alice has produced, which we're going to, state at the end, and and get the links on how you can get in contact with Alice and get herself a session. She's got a beautiful website. It's called Linktree, but it's not spelled that way. It's linktr.ee/Alice Swadling. Okay, so linktr.ee/Alice Swadling. Anyway, you can get more information, get a session, all that stuff coming up. But anyway, I just want to say that for beginners, because I've had so many clients, we'll sit there and we'll do the mental part to identify and say, okay, now it's time to clear. And they run. Oh, gotta go, not gonna go there, not gonna revisit this pain, whatever. So what your tools can be so helpful for those starting out. Anyway, I'm talking too much. It's your interview. So tell me about, you do this process. We don't need to get into the details of it now, but I think it's important that you talk about how you've changed from being able to understand it and do it on yourself. What results have you been experiencing?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is, one of the beauty of it, like you say, is it was designed initially for people to be able to access their emotions who were completely blocked. So it's done in a very accessible way. But while, it's almost like any great chef, you've got to taste your own creations. I obviously have then started testing it on myself and have had some extremely profound clearings where I've guided myself through, tapped into deep, deep wells of personal and collective trauma around fear, around shame in particular. Even like one process that I did was on the core wound of humanity right now is the shame of being in denial of the divine. And I was able to tap into that well of emotion of this disappointment, this grief, this loss, this blame that we are all holding, that we have allowed ourselves to play out an experience of thinking that we are anything but divine. And so as I did a series of these clearings on myself, using the techniques that I also have and the other tools from, your guidance to really express the emotion. And it's almost like the process brings down that dam, and then you can allow that water to flow. So the water comes through, which is the emotional energy, which then you're draining it out of yourself, out of your energy field. And the results that I've been having have been as profound as having come out of like a psychedelic trip, out of a psychedelic ceremony, because not only is it body, mind, and spirit, you know, it's like a full upgrade to your energy system. And in the area where you're able to tap into these energetic like tumors and release and clear and cleanse those from your field, you then welcome in as a part of the process, you fill that new space, that new void with source love energy. And so what I have come to realize over this last couple of weeks is that the experience that I'm having is one of re-embodiment of the Christ. There's no other way to say it. I know the Christ is perhaps a word that can be quite triggering for people, but the Christ is not an individual. The Christ is the fractal of divine consciousness expressing uniquely as you. It is the peace of God, the flame of God that is shining uniquely as your soul. And so this is what I've come to understand and realize, is that this process of the emotional mastery, understanding and logic about the nature of our reality and our energy system, it is very much almost like having like a paddle where we're then able to row, instead of it being rowing upstream and struggling against the current. It's then a 180 flip, and suddenly you're going with the current. You've got this paddle and you're sailing right out to source, which is the ocean. It is the expanse. It is an experience of, I mean, I'm having experiences now of essentially having my consciousness melting into the ether, melting into spirit, which is prana, it is mana, it is chi, it is the Holy Ghost. Those are all words for the exact same thing. And it's the spiritual realm where your soul lies, where you are actually having this physical experience from. It's almost as if physical reality is actually a divine interface. And what do I mean by that? It's like the desktop of your computer, of your laptop. You have the interface screen that you interact with. But what that is being informed by is the program, the code behind it, which is where it takes its instruction from. And this physical reality is a divine consciousness interface for spirit, for energy, which is God, which is animating all life, everything that you are existing in your reality.
Wow. Wow. See, this is so beautiful what you're speaking. I always called it being a fractal of God, but I never made the connection that that was embodying Christ consciousness. And it makes sense to me because if you get past the dogma, you know, when Christ is saying, I'm the Son of God, that's what he's saying for all of us. I have embodied God in me physically, hence I am his child, which is what we all are, and you experience Christ consciousness so beautifully. I'm just very excited. Just very excited to hear this, and I get glimpses of it when I tap into your field. I'm like, ooh, this is coming for me. Yeah. Okay. So you're quite inspiring in that way as well. It's so beautiful. Now, so tell me a little bit about the specifics of how this process works, because it's more than just the kind of emotional clearing. I mean, I kind of had the sense when you gave it for me, and it was just beautiful. I was like, wow, this is everything. You're not skipping over any part of my psyche here, you know? And what was fun was because
Mhm.
an ego, and I like to think I'm the practitioner here and I know stuff, right? You can see my videos and my books and stuff. So I would start going down whatever road I would go down, and you would reel me in. That's great, Peter, but we need to do this step. And they were very important steps that I was bypassing through my own arrogance. And so if you kind of want to walk through just what's involved, you don't have to get through all the weeds of all the details, but just the, an overview of how this whole process works, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, sure, of course. So I'm offering now one-on-one sessions, which are in the format of a 90-minute consciousness reset. And so it's almost done in quite a ceremonial way, where at the beginning, I will guide you through a very short guided breathing process to shift your state of consciousness into a slightly altered state, which is also made possible because of the consciousness bridge that we create when we do this session. And
Yeah,
you're tapping into my energy field.
I just want to say that usually I'm the one who's sitting there generating the field, but when I was with you, I was like, what? I'll just sit back and let her open up the doorways. Wow.
Exactly. I almost get this, I have this image of someone's vibration almost like stepping into a circus tent, and the tent is being held up by the highest pole. The height of the pole is the highest vibration in the room, and you are stepping into that tent, and you have that new height of expanse where you can look up and see a new volume of space that is available to you to lift. So that is how that works. That's a sort of metaphor for understanding. So yeah, first of all, there's this shift in consciousness where it's almost like being in this calm, serene, blissful, meditative state, which gives people the ability to feel safe and feel nurtured, where they can access information from their heart, which is coming from spirit, from the divine. We're stepping outside of the analytical ego mind, which is externally focused. Instead, we're shifting our awareness internally. And so there's a process at the beginning that I guide people through where we determine which is the emotion that we will focus on for that one session. So each session is going to be focused on one emotion, either fear, shame, anger, hopelessness, etc., etc. And the first section is basically a process of reprogramming. And this is from an understanding of what I was able to unpick from the experience when I was navigating that storm of my own subconscious and realizing there were all these subconscious programs I didn't know were there. And I guide people to be able to fish them out of the realm of being subconscious, not known, and bring them up to the light so that then we can switch that programming. Because the basis of how reality is built is that any trauma or any programming inform your thoughts, which may be happening subconsciously or consciously, which form your feelings, which inform your emotions, which create the outcomes and the actions, which is how reality is actually being built. This is happening on a collective level and an individual level. This is how the timelines are being created and how we're navigating to align our energy field to one particular timeline. So I realized through this chain reaction that, okay, we need to go back into the programming initially, cleanse the fear programs, like having viruses that are running in the background of a computer that you didn't know was there. You downloaded something once and something else nasty got in. So we bring those programs, those viruses up to the light, to the conscious awareness, where we can see through them as being fear-based and as having been acting like the blinders on a horse that had been focusing your attention on replicating fear, which draws experiences of the future towards you that are fear-based. And instead, we convert those fear programs into programs of love. We switch up the vibration of releasing the blinders that the fear creates, taking those off from the horse, where then suddenly there opens up an expanse of alternative opportunities of how things could go and actually work perfectly in your favor. And so then we just reprogram some new thoughts, new beliefs, which are gonna bring in and reel in those timelines of experience that you do wish to experience.
This
So
is,
that's, sorry, just section section
yeah,
one.
this is so, so beautiful. And I know we're getting technical on the actual practitioner work of it, but I think it should be inviting to those of you who are listening the depths of what you can experience. I had always thought that when enough of us come to a level of consciousness, the planet's going to pop. Now, I am seeing that happen in Alice. Okay. She's had her awareness and her experience. And now, what did you say earlier? You were working with the collective unconscious of the planet and starting to move those through you because you hold them, because you're aware that you're on the planet, hence you hold them. And now you're going even further by talking about, and then this is how we shift timelines. So that we go from, oh, what we have been, basically the life you're living is your timeline, right? To the one that you want to live. Now imagine when we flip into the timeline where it's peace on earth and everybody's happy and fulfilled, right? And so that's what's happening. And this is a very, very beautiful and practical way that you can actually access all this. So Alice, tell a little bit more about how people can get in touch with you if they want to start to experience this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so at the moment, the sessions are available on a Calendly booking link, which the link that you can access all of my information and my social media channels to connect is on a Linktree page, which the website for that is linktr.ee/Alice Swadling.
Yeah, and just spell swaddling out for us, please.
Yeah, so Alice is ALICE and Swadling SWADLING.
Yeah, well, I was getting preparing for this interview and my mind was making up puns. And I think, oh, yes, we're going to talk about Christ consciousness because this is Alice, the progenitor of the swaddling clothes that the Christ was wrapped in the manger. It's like, oh, yeah, how to slip that one in. Sorry, it's a bad pun, but I had to do it. Okay. So now, tell me about the current adventures that you're on. I know you're like, because when you first contacted me, you were in Asia, and then all of a sudden you were in Santa Fe, and we got together, and it was so beautiful. And now all of a sudden, then you went back to England for a while, and then you were back in India, and now this
Yeah.
call is being recorded from Bali. This is like the adventure tour. Tell me what's going on in your life.
Just going back to the process, sorry. So I was
I'm sorry I
explaining the
cut you
programming
off.
of
It's my
section.
habit.
Sorry, yeah. Sorry, there's two more sections that I'll just give a very brief outline to
Oh,
first before
cool.
I answer that question, if that's okay.
Yeah, even more, folks, even more.
Sorry, yeah, I just want to give the full picture. So the first part was the programming, which is essentially re-empowering people into being able to consciously control which timeline they are magnetizing towards themselves. So we're talking about shifting from a future where you would experience perhaps more pain, more fear, more anger, more shame, and instead being able to shift to the future of feeling lightness, feeling joy, feeling connection and love. And so the middle section is then basically working in the past. So, word that people use these days is like working in the quantum. We're basically navigating through time and space, which is made possible from connecting to yourself as a spirit. And what we do is we go back into a memory and we go back into the child, or an example of yourself as a child where this emotion was brought up, it was felt, but it was blocked. And what we do is we create a healing pathway, which is also known as doing like parts work, which I know there's amazing work done in IFS therapy, which is the same understanding, and also inner child work. And we essentially are retrieving a piece of your soul energy. So it's retrieving a soul fragment from the past. Imagine if your soul energy was like a vase, and if you took a hammer to the vase and it shattered into pieces, then those pieces of yourself, your energy, have been trapped and frozen in time across the timeline. So we go back into the past, we pick up a piece of this vase, and we bring it back into alignment with your soul in the present now. And what this does is create the pathway for the healing that can be shared across time and across space to other parts of your soul that are also trapped with the pain of that emotion. So it has a very expansive quantum healing effect. That's also where there would be a physical somatic cleansing of the aura and the body, which clears away pain and trauma and belief systems associated with that memory.
Yeah, I know. When you
Then
were taking me through that process, uh, we were going right back to being an infant who was being raped. Okay.
Mhm.
And so, and I've addressed this and I've done healing work around it, but in the way you did it and in the presence of your consciousness, layers that were not accessed before were very plain to me and cleared. And I've been lighter and more energetic, which is just an immediate side effect of, oh, I got more energy. I think you explained it by you have a glass of water and there's all these little dense rocks of energy in it. And when they dissolve, then you just get the water, the energy, and rather than the blockage. So I can, whatever that going back was,
Mhm.
wow. And that was only the second part.
Yeah. Yeah. So then the third and final section is basically then shifting from healing work in the past to then connecting with the future. And so we would bring in the consciousness of the emotion itself, because with the understanding that everything is divine consciousness, you can talk to the energy of the emotion and understand, basically shifting from having viewed it from the fear state, which is the ego state, to then lifting to the Christ consciousness and viewing the energy of the emotion through the eyes of the Christ. And with that perception, you can understand what is the divine intelligence that is being offered to me. How is this emotion actually acting in service to me from God to aid my ascension? And that is a new understanding and paradigm that shifts people's reality. You would never be the same once you tap into that awareness. And a part of this as well is we bring in a future version of you who joins the conversation and shares messages and insights and encouragement. And this is the fascinating thing. I've done this process now with people who would consider themselves completely not spiritual. And what they haven't realized, having gone through this process, is that they've been traveling through time. Their consciousness has. They've been tapping into timelines. They've been channeling messages and guidance and feedback from themselves in the future. And it happened so easily and naturally in the moment, in the process, that I don't think people have even really registered or realized quite the magnitude of what they have shown themselves as being capable of doing. And this is also like a really important point to note, that the process is designed that I guide you through your own healing. You are the one who taps into all of the insights, taps into all of the energies, and I am just there as this guiding force, loving and supporting and honoring the person and witnessing them as they start to tap into their own power and realize the power of the Christ that is within them, quite often for the first time.
I can't add anything to it other than wow, you're in for a treat for those of you who are like me, spiritual junkies. But for those of you who really want healing, expect to up level, expect to go up a few steps into a more expansive view and open up those timelines. Remember, it's the link tree link will be linktr.ee/Alice Swadling. So tell us what's next.
Yeah, okay, amazing, thank you. So what's been happening? I suppose where I'm at on my personal journey as well, just to give some background, is that over the course of the last year, since January 2024, I have basically been traveling on my own around the planet, and I was just following the guidance kind of fairly spontaneously. And then what became obvious was that I was doing a chakra world tour. So I was being guided to visit the planetary chakra points of the planet of Gaia. And what does this mean? So the planet has energy pathways in the same way our bodies have energy pathways. And it's almost like imagining there are channels of energy like motorways where the energies are passing through the earth. And I had been guided to visit sacred sites, which are also energy portals, which are also extraterrestrial portals, if you're comfortable with me talking about that. And that's what I've been doing for this past year, basically visiting these sites, connecting with the energies of the land, connecting with other aspects of my soul who have history in those lands, and tapping into continually throughout deeper and deeper layers of my own healing journey and my own clearing, and bringing more and more of my subconscious patterns up and out of me to connect more deeply with source, to embody more of the love and the power that is available to us. It exists within us. And I think people have got people have been lured into a loop, a pattern of externalizing God, externalizing the divine as being something that is outside of you, that exists in a book or a building, when in reality, your portal to God consciousness, is your body. It is your heart chakra. It's almost like there is a telephone with a direct line that you have in the heart. And all of the souls of the planet are being asked to tune in to the sound of that telephone ringing. It's ringing out for you to be able to pick up that telephone, and for many people for the first time, connect with the divine on a personal, conscious, intentional level. And that is something that I really want to emphasize and inspire in people, that you can imagine yourself as having a personal and direct, loving communication and relationship with the Creator, with the infinite source that is God.
It's beautiful. That's beautiful. And in this tour that you're making, I know that you are obviously connecting to those chakras, but there's more than just the interaction. There's also a clearing for you and a clearing for the planet there. Can you talk a little bit about how people can support you doing this?
Yeah. So far, I had been using all of my own funds to pay for the trip for the past year. And eventually, what I realized, as I realized the funds are basically about to run out, that was when I finally was able to tap into a lot of the deep programs and pains that I had about blocks to receiving and self-worth issues, the pain and shame of being able to open myself up to receive support and love and help from others. And so now, having tapped into those barriers and brought those down, I'm now in a place where I'm seeking help and seeking assistance from others who would like to support my work and support my journey. And the invitation has presented itself for a trip for 3 weeks in May to go to visit the temples and pyramids of Egypt. And if anyone is feeling called to donate or make a sponsorship towards helping me funding the remainder of my travels as I continue to share information and updates freely on social media, then I have just set up a GoFundMe page, which is also available on the Linktree website, where I would be, so honored and grateful for anyone who is feeling called to offer their support and share in their finances to help me continue with doing this work for the divine, doing this work for the benefit of the collective. That is my soul mission. That's why I'm here. That's why I exist. And yeah, I'm so honored and grateful to be able to share this journey with you all.
So, yeah, let me just reinforce that as you give, so you receive. Exactly. I know many of you who view this tithe or are aware of tithing. The most important thing I've ever learned is give to that which inspires you, because it's a ticket to the universe saying, I want some of that coming to me, because as you give, so you receive. So if you're inspired by anything you heard about Alice's consciousness, about what she's attempting to do to help other people grow and to help clear the planet, remember, you can get on Linktree, which is linktr.ee/Alice Swadling, and support this. So we're going to wrap this up now. Anything you'd like to say as a parting note, Alice?
As a parting message, I think I would like to just share a short message which is coming through of encouragement for people, because it's easy to reflect on things that are happening in the news or things that are happening in the world. And again, it comes back to the programming, being led to believe that everything is going horribly wrong or everything is doomed for the future. But the reality, energetically, spiritually, is the direct opposite of that. The signs of some chaos, which I know is challenging, these are the signs of the changes that are taking place, that are creating the opportunity for new foundations. And the experience that we will have as we move into a new future together is one where we are honoring the presence of the divine in all life and honoring the experience and the journey of each soul. There will be an opening of so much love and so much joy, excitement, passion. these
The
are the
golden
gifts.
age. Yes, living in it. We get to live in the golden age. Yes.
These are the gifts that are in the very near future. And so I just want to share a message of hope that we are in the age of the Christ now. The times have shifted, and if you're here and you're receiving this message, then you can know that the hand of God is at work on this planet. If you connect into your energy and open your heart, there is a comfort and a nurturing of the divine that is available to you in every now moment. And it's a journey that we're going to be taking together. Please connect with me on social media and online, and I will be sharing so much content and updates, divine truth, spiritual wisdom that is coming through me as a messenger for the spiritual realm. And together we are going to consciously navigate towards a future reality filled with all the things that we do desire to experience. So there's so much to celebrate.
That's beautiful, Alice. Thank you. First of all, Alice Swadling's an amazing person, amazing guest. Thank you for, one, just doing this interview, and two, deciding to walk a pretty hard path. I remember you were telling me you had to tone it down when you first made your shift so that your family wouldn't commit you. All right, because you're just making no more sense to what they were used to. All right, that's a pretty big path to choose, to go from down here to up here all at once. So thank you for having the bravery of being that kind of soul, and then sharing it so beautifully here and through all the rest of your work. Much, much gratitude. Remember, you can get in touch using Linktree, which is linktr.ee/Alice Swadling. And please remember, this is a discussion. So either put a review or a comment, on this message, and share it. If you think other people can be tapping into this and can get a little help and benefit, please share it. All right. Blessings so much. So grateful to be with you.
Thank you.
All right. See you in the next episode.